All right, we're on to economic divorce 3. Maybe I should just always do them like this now because they're more punchy and chapter based. So in the Australian government, currently Australian Labor Party's history, prominently made up by labour unions and representatives and things like this, that firmly represented shearers in order to go down this iterative pathway towards, the Ute model. Right, we had shearers. And there was a literal war in this country between shearers because, as you can imagine, right, basically, if you've ever had clipped your hair, like shaved your head, like a lot of One Nation voters do, so that they fit into the skinhead fucking archetype, right? There's a comb. It looks kind of like that, right? And it was that long, right? So you clip go the shears, boys, right? Now, there was a war in this country. The teeth are a little bit bigger because somebody developed, and I'll draw this one appropriately. Somebody developed a comb that was that much fucking longer. That was enough. Because think about it. So if it's that much longer, it means that every stroke is that much wider, right? And they were getting paid on how much and how quickly they think and how accurate they were and stuff like that. And there was a complete war between shearers in this country because somebody developed a comb this big. And basically anyone that was using that comb that was that much longer was declared an enemy. And they were completely fucking ostracized. There were literally massive, people were almost killed in this. Australian Labor. Right, we're talking about a simple, really, compared to this, absolutely simplistic tool. Yeah, at that time, still electronic, right? They didn't change the electronics. They changed the width of the comb. That was it. That was enough for the Australian Labor Party to be activated into an all-out war against this thing. To standardise. To say that, no, you're only allowed to use this comb because if you use that comb, then you're going too quick and you'll get work and you'll destroy the whole market. Right? That is unbelievable. Right, but based on what I've said here this morning, we can basically map that the Ute forged a basically terminally destructive psychological ailment to regional Australia. Because once there's a Ute, right, there's two things that can happen. The people in the city can say that you have to come here. Before you say, that's going to take me 4 weeks. Oh, okay, alrighty, we'll just send a telegraph. Like, you're left alone out there. But now with a Ute, it's like, well, you've got to come in here and do this, right? And it meant the people from the city, every now and then could fucking go out there, could drive the 5 hours to sell you more things, like tractors and other shit. But that never would have happened without any of these things. Right, so all of this oversimplified. It turned what was an absolutely high-fidelity circuit board because each farmer was their own AI genius, basically, with thousands of years of acquired knowledge, condensed through the new technological things that were locally developed, and they could and this is what a lot of farms look like, right? So if you zoom out to a farm, that's what it looked like. And then if there's hundreds of those farms in the area, it does start looking like a circuit board. But now it looks like one giant farm with one giant fucking tractor shipping back to one other fucking place to extract back finances, turn all of that land into money, send it to the fucking shearing shed, which is the New York Cities and the Londons, and turn it into fucking promotional things to then sell more. But it's a Ponzi scheme. It's like you are laying the local societies to waste, to accumulate all of this, all of the value, all of the wealth, only to try and sell them back things, which ends up that you have to force the people to live in their own little circuit boards that are defective. Because because all of this was established and the original concept of owning a ute, that never went away. So now we have these suburbs. We have suburban urban sprawl, and Western Australia being probably globally the worst example in the world of it. Why? Because it was straightforward. It was like it happened in pretty much 40 years. 40 years it went from, do you want a ute? And then it's like, your children all have utes in a mini farm, which is called like a suburban property, when all the farming's gone. And you don't need a shear anymore. And instead of arguing about a fucking comb that's this much longer, you now all consent to basically committing mass fucking slavery onto all of your fucking, like all of your descendants from here into infinity by allowing something that makes a fucking comb this long look like a fucking, like a stone axe compared to it. You know what I mean? This is basically mathematically certainty that there is no way you're going to escape. And still the Labor Party has not moved on it. Where did it move? Where did it move on to? Did it say that, no, you can't use a comb? No, you can't fucking, benefit from this suburban development and all this? No, it didn't do any of that. It said the children can't fucking talk. And they didn't even get that right. God forbid that there's still some old fucking codger out there that understands that this all started from his dad or his granddad buying a fucking ute. And God forbid that message should get through to the children in a timely manner, in an efficient manner, through the system. God forbid we should understand the true value of our nation and disconnect it permanently from these extractive fucking shearing sheds and basically tell the Australian government that if they ever treat Australian women and children like sheep again, that we'll kill every single fucking one of them. We will hunt them like feral fucking dingoes, because that's what you fucking are. You are fucking wild fucking dogs harvesting fucking women and children in this country so that you can sell their fucking hides to fucking New York and London, and we've got you fucking surrounded. And there is no way to fucking argue your way out of this. Every argument that we're going to bring forward to any court in anything is going to basically take what is really a small period of time for a continent-sized development this big and say that, the establishment and the tax benefit scheme that was provided to people to buy foreign vehicles basically guaranteed a lower level, unacceptable level, subhuman level of development, and then in turn basically mandated it. Because you've got every single woman in this country over a barrel, and the choice they have to make is, do you support what the government is doing with all of their police, all of their courts, all of their fucking social servants, all of their teachers, all of their nurses, all of their doctors, all of their infrastructure, all of their markets, all of their media, all of their everything? Or do you listen to the grumpy old curmudgeon that doesn't want to buy a ute? And how on fucking earth, considering he's already lost, how is anyone in this fucking world ever going to stand in defense of that iterative cul-de-sac and say, we shouldn't have gone down that fucking pathway? It's so meaty. It's so gigantic. You understand that, like, these systems, those car manufacturers that had excess engines turned into industrial chains of supply. This is Henry Ford like shit. Well, they were public companies traded on Wall Street. Ford, being one of them, Holden, General Motors, traded by city dwellers to profit from the destruction of the entire fucking world's supply system, except the industrial supply system. So now it's like every single person is at war with an industrial fucking behemoth that is like, that's never ending, that people are literally betting on. And this is where we are. And it's like, why are we in these things where everyone feels like that, that everything's everything's going to kill us, or that they're spraying shit from it? Because that's what economically it looks like. But it's like, how do we flip the switch? And do you know what I fucking think that, like, right behind this thing is? Right behind this ute, this automobile, this fossil fuel shearing shed circuit board. What type of electricity runs through these circuit boards? Maybe I could ask Elon. Is it alternating current? I don't think it is. Let me think. It's like, hang on. There's a cord here in my computer. Like, let's have a look. Oh, there's a transformer here made by Asus. Right? What does it say here? God, there's a lot of words. Right. Oh, okay. So, by the looks of this, alternating current comes in here. And what is DC? What is it? Direct. Oh, yeah, of course. Direct. And then direct current comes out. So the supercomputer on my desk that I'm talking to you with is running on direct current, but the transportation device is alternating current. Because basically alternating current is the Lamborghini of the electrical world. So we're now in a situation where we are attempting to continue, and the reason for the AC basically is exactly this. It can go long distances without losing power. So in a DC system, there is an incentive to create local solutions for power generation and power transmission, like the computer. That's why, like, for some reason, it's not a problem to go through, a meter of cord into the computer and then fly around all the really high fidelity circuit board, right? That doesn't look like this anymore. It doesn't look like the old transistor, like stereo hi-fi with all the big capacitors and shit like that. It doesn't look like a guitar amp. It looks like a fucking intergalactic fucking city from the future. Whereas AC looks like electric fences. It looks like giant electric fences off Jurassic Park, because that's actually what it is. So it's like, in combination between these two fucking things that have been sold to Australia, alternating current and the ute, you've enslaved an entire country. Because basically, if I wanted to keep cattle in a fucking farm, in the small farm that looks like this, with one person who may or may not need a ute, right, one of the most important tools I would use in this current era is electric fencing, because it means I can run one bit of tape and keep fucking cows in. You can't do the same with sheep, but you can use netting. And sheep are annoying anyway, because then you've got to argue with the Labor Party about the combs if you want to shear them. But either way, I would use an electric fence to keep the livestock in, and that's an AC product, I think. Or is it DC? I'm not really sure. I think it's AC. Because it goes, but maybe it isn't. But either way, it's a pretty high level tool. There are DC electric fences, but I think they convert to AC. Anyway. So again, there's another thing of, it's like, why aren't we selling these concepts as, like, obviously now, if this computer looks like this, like the circuit board looks like this, or the circuit board in my phone looks as small as this, right? Yet this is all 100% concerned with sending information from my phone through DC into the internet and back to the shearing shed. right? But why do I need to consent to that when we can now apply a DC electrical system that is disconnected from everything else? You know, what we want to hear, what we want to think when people that support these wild dog fucking shearers from the Labor Party is they want to think that they're putting these high tensile wires in to power the city, right? Which already there's an argument. There's already an argument because it's like, oh, the fucking city cunts want our power. They want us to drag their power in so they can do it. Now, that's an aspect of it. But the most important thing is to make sure that we don't realize that we can have our own local DC manufacturing facilities now for nothing, right, that don't require fossil fuels. And then we're connected to basically a supercomputer that can turn, like, it can turn 10 acres into, oh, we've got another fucking troll. That can turn 10 acres. Do you pay fucking rent or board to the fucking Labor Party? Do you do the gardening? Oh my God, I just fucking can't. What do you think? What do you think I'm talking about right now, mate? Right, what country do you fucking come from? You won't answer, so I don't even know why I'm fucking doing this. Yeah? When did you land here? Labor Party, you're a member. Right, so you're one of these wild dog fucking shearers that has fucking done all this shit. And you're talking about a fucking rental Airbnb fucking bullshit brigade party from a United Kingdom fucking Ponzi scheme that projected onto Australia. And you're trying to get in the way of me talking about the entire landmass that has been degraded to absolute fucking nonsense. And you're here on this system representing the Labor Party. You think this is how we're going to continue on? We've got good courts in this country. We've got good infrastructure. This is all going to be brought to, it's like there is no explanation for this. This is simple engineering. And they are using the most sophisticated engineering to completely steal and enslave every person in the country. Not as some conspiracy theorist fucking nonsense, but by absolute certainty. You know, and this is why there is incentives to bring particularly United Kingdom people here that are stuck in their system and then plug them into this. Like a fucking holding pen. But that's not how this country was built. You know, there's things like when they... Oh, anyway, I'll get into that later. I'll just basically ignore you now because you're here just to fucking provoke me. But basically what the Labor Party is doing by putting those high tensile lines in is making sure that their infrastructure is sound, that their confinement infrastructure is sound, making sure that we don't co-develop with other countries some type of locally concentrated DC system. And if you think this is nonsense, it's like this was basically an entire global war that went on between these two currents. You know, these two companies, whether it was Westinghouse or whether it was the Tesla manufacturing thing, like this basically shaped the entire world because AC was decided that it was better. It was only better because of one metric, because it could travel long distances without losing power. That's the exact same system as what the Ute used. But has there been adequate reflection on those decisions? Like, if the land base could talk, does it say, I'm so glad you brought all those Utes here? Or does it say, God damn it, those Utes were a fucking mistake? And it's the same if a town could talk in Australia. Does it say, oh, I'm so glad that the AC power line connected us all up? Or do they say, that connected us to the global fucking filth trap and it basically destroyed our communities? And there's no denying it. You know, our information systems, our energy transmission systems, they're all connected to a extraction city, high density living, where people work in administration. And it's like, you don't even need that anymore. You know, one person in Beijing with a phone can basically think of how to extract 0.1% from the entire Australian economy from every person pretty snappily. You know, what happens when there's entire digital cities that sole way to remunerate themselves, the sole way to economically drive their progress is to extract from unknowing, in their eyes, like primitive people. But the problem is, it's like these cities are breaking down. You get South Korea, they're all going insane. Tokyo, they're all going insane because they live in a fucking circuit board. Right? So we have the value. We have the denuded, like millions of acres of land. And it's like, if you take the level of engineering that goes into one of these and you apply it to 5 acres of land, you've got Eden. You've got a little Eden, right? If you can then have that, 100 of those, and then there's a town in the middle, then you've got an even better thing. And there is absolutely no reason to normalize this homogenization of Australia. And the reason for it, like the precedent that I'll stand on to go to any court is, well, that's how Australia was built. There was no way to do it. The first, like the telegraph was only I think later than the turn of the century. And that was only like the amount of information you could put through a telegraph was basically nothing. But you apply all of these things inappropriately down one closed one-way fucking road, and that is never the way that you design anything. It's like, if we were doing that in anything else, like if you basically apply how we've designed our societies, how we've governed our societies, and you compare them to the computer age, it's like, then this computer would still be as big as a room, and I could only play Minesweeper on it. That's what it is. Yet we have these. So we have a basically alien culture that isn't alien, because they're literally our parallel ancestors, but because of where they geographically decided to settle, they were forged by their governments into basically slavery to build systems of extraction of their long-lost cousins in other countries. But now we're all back on even footing again. And it's like, hang on, I don't want to be plugged into a global media system and a global finance system. Certain aspects of the global finance system are fine, but I don't want to be plugged into the global fucking spam finance system that's basically unknowing, because we don't have, pamphlets rocking up at your door anymore. We're just bombarded by global financial spam, which it's basically like probably every day, every single person is exposed to maybe 100 pieces of content trying to sell them something as destructive, potentially, as the original Ute was. There's no need for that. Because it's not like we're not actually collectively doing anything as humans. That's a myth. Humans live. Like, we don't work first. We live first. Our work provides our living. If we have societies and environments that like specialize in creating human environments where people live, then that doesn't cost anything. It's the same as this. I can get this to write a song, and that if I got Michael Jackson and a production company and all these things to do that, that would have cost $1 million. For some reason, we can easily accept that that's the reality we're in, but we never apply it and go backwards to the original timelines where these large destructive elements were just fucking barged into our society. And as men, why in Australia? Because the Ute is sold to you as your fucking identity. There's dangerous things about marketing all the way across it. And this is a weird one because it's not intended. It wasn't intended to do this role that it's doing. Not really. They don't care. They made it your identity so you'd buy it. They didn't care about anything after that. The fact that, a bunch of Australian men under the thumbs of their fucking totalitarian fucking wives and girlfriends who are also married to the government, the fact that all they've got is a fucking Ute with maybe a pair of golf clubs in the back of it now. That wasn't the intended result of the original marketing. But we're stuck with it. So the government is managing our country and its people via the collateral damage that 50 years of marketing has done to them, which is insane. That's what I mean. Wild fucking dogs selling fucking hides, poachers selling fleeces back to the fucking thing. It's exactly the same, except they're humans. And the system here makes sure if you constantly see humans on your phone, like you're constantly like, oh, humans doing things. Oh, I'm part of a big group of people that are all doing things. But it's like, why am I stuck in a fucking, basically a car park that only exists because some dickhead farmer couldn't say no to his wife and bought a ute 60, 70 years ago? These are the questions, and it's like no one is at the thing where we're realizing from here onwards, it's not like we don't continue down the same road with the supercomputer on it in our fucking hand. We go back and analyze what got us here. And then this becomes not like some type of technology. It becomes a lifeboat that we're all in. Oh, God, thank God I've got a fucking lifeboat. Holy shit. But no one is directing us there. You know, because it's weirdly like the most probable thing that you could think of. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of another example of what, like if you think like a vacuum cleaner is sold to you, it doesn't provide you with anything. It cleans the mess you've already made over and over and over again. Right, that's just to narrow it down to another consumer product that women have been sold. But it's like, so the children, the thing, and weirdly as well with women, it becomes, this is your tool to provide your service to the household and clean up all the mess that everyone else made. You know, and because they're the wielder of the tool, it puts them in this higher position where they're never responsible for the mess, which then creates the thing where the government can then sell to that. So again, the same way as the government is selling to the collateral damage, psychological damage that the marketing, collective intergenerational marketing has done to men, they're doing the same to women. And literally, it's like there will be women in this country that want a house simply so they can have the vacuum cleaner that everyone else has, so they can then clean the house. And all the government needs to do is go basically sell that. It's like, well, 5% deposit, now you can live in a car park and have a Dyson vacuum cleaner. They're not governing historically and accurately. They're governing basically like the stands of products that you have to walk through when you're at the supermarket or at Kmart. You know, that want you to buy them because you're at the till. That's how the government is governing this entire fucking continent, this entire rock. They're selling you shit like Kinder Surprises and fucking bubblegum at the fucking till. Because that's all they are. They're a fucking supermarket. All they want is your tax. They want you to efficiently assemble yourselves in the way that the corporate fucking interests, you know, have simplified down, despite the fact that now we have ridiculous tools. So simplification isn't necessary anymore. Right? But they want you to orderly line up at the queue, and then they want to sell you things while you're there. You know, you try and speak about anything that exists before you even get in the supermarket. Like, you know what I mean? And this is where it comes to like, a crackhead just fucking pushed a fucking shopping trolley into my car. Oh, I don't know. Maybe we'll give them some counseling and some free needles. Like, they don't have any answers for that because all they're doing is selling you shit at the fucking till. They've simplified their system down. And it's like, I know this because this is my job. When I have a company, I'm constantly thinking about how to simplify shit down. But that is the past. These tools enable you to go, instead of simplifying down so that you have a convenient extraction system or a business, a profitable business, the incentive now is to absolutely complicate everything and then sell a premium. It's like, and this is basically what all of these things does. It's like you have one of these, it sits in your pocket and you can do all these things with it. You can go to the library and search the internet and get the exact same things free from all the distraction. And if this actually cost the amount, if this wasn't filled with basically spam and junk mail, it would cost $20,000. But it's like, why are we forced to live in that system? Because we have entire metropolitan regions that have only developed themselves to extract from greater regions, but they were extracting into primitive societies. How do I know this? Because this is what the entire British Empire and every empire has ever done. Most prominently, the Roman Empire, who started this whole trend with digging up, with clearing trees. And there's a funny phenomenon in Australia. It's like Rome never colonized Australia. So why are there so many Italians here trying to clear trees and build houses? Why have they been able to install themselves into their system but not go back in history and say, do you know that you cleared the entirety of Europe and those trees have not been replanted? But you're stopping me building a fucking bridge on my property in Australia. It's like, how fucking stupid do you think we're going to be in the future? And I don't envy anyone in government at the moment, because basically, you're like fucking ants crawling under a rock, and every single person has just been given a magnifying glass. I happen to use the magnifying glass to just look more closely and enjoy watching you as you scurry around and try and find cover again. Right? But there are people that will use those magnifying glasses to burn you with the sun. And these are all the types of things. Like, this is one morning's fucking presentation about these types of things. But all of them need answers. The minute we're basically getting blackmailed by an Iranian regime to do with this somehow necessary product that swept the world in 80 years, completely destroyed our ability to look after ourselves and to provide for ourselves, and turned us into basically an automated checkout at a supermarket. It's really simple. All we need to do is run the current back through the wire. Why is our government building systems that makes it easier for corporations to extract from us? Because they're criminals. You know what I mean? Imagine being them. They're all criminals. They've been led into a corporate style, lifestyle kind of occupation, where they've all been convinced that everyone's criminals. Yeah, everyone's criminals. It's just what we do. And then all of a sudden we're going to have millions of supercomputers saying, hang on, no, because that guy didn't want to buy the ute. There was a period where we made utes in Australia, and it was a different story, kind of, I guess, but that's long gone. We don't make utes in Australia anymore. So you have to answer the questions. Why are there people in this country writing off, $50,000 of tax, or whatever it is, like $10,000, $20,000 of tax in one fucking go because they bought something that doesn't make sense? They don't have a hay bale to carry. As I said about the tools, they don't really have tools to carry. Unless you're a door-to-door like tradesman in people's houses, then you do. But why is that the system? Why is that what was built? Why did we build a system that requires cars and all these things? Because that's how it works. We are forced to live in a simplified, mechanical, car-based society, and we are extracted from by people that live in high-density urban environments. This is the basis of the entire thing. And the problem is, it's like, when this already exists in the farms, right? But then we have a localized Australia-centric or nationalized-centric view of everything. So if you live in the suburbs, you basically, as Australians, you think you live in the city, right? So when you're constantly told that the supermarkets are ripping the farmers off, you don't care because you're in that city-dwelling thing. But then you are all collectively being harvested and preyed upon by big cities in other countries because someone decided to connect them all up with wires. Right, so it's like that's a really big problem. If you get a certain class of people that think they're the high class of Australia, and they're already in that kind of lording over farmers and expecting them to work as peasants. Then why do you expect the cities to not do the same to you? Because you're just fucking rats on a fucking treadmill doing the same shit. And there is no way to maintain these oversimplified structures, right? Because basically, like, what Australia resembles now, the suburbs, if I'm honest, is a monopoly board filled with fucking prostitutes. That's it. A monopoly board, a digital monopoly board filled with prostitutes that are married to the government. And they're expected to raise children at the same fucking time. So they're raising children within a fucking brothel that's managed by the government. And at the same time, they've got to run on a treadmill to fucking, to keep the lights on. And we're told that this is the economy. We're told this is economics. Yet the person out with the exact equation, every single time you say no to purchasing a ute, you are making the revolutionary statement, and it should be classified in the same paradigm, because basically otherwise there's an incentive to recklessly build societies to just oppose the simple decision of saying no. And then you only can use a few metrics. You use momentum, you use social norms, you use peer pressure, you use like status quo to push back against one individual at a time. And this is the breakdown of democracy. It's like, democracy can't work like that. Democracy cannot work in a place where there is a collective delusion, collective hypnosis to conform to a foreign system being mandated illegally through our government here. That doesn't make sense. It has made everyone worse. Your money is disappearing, your value is disappearing, your social norms are degrading, the society is in absolute disrepair. All the symptoms are there. Yet the only way that our government will actually, answer questions is on an individual basis. And then what's even worse, they'll mock that person. You somehow, but we did make a film about this called The Castle. But this isn't one fucking guy trying to save his house. This is basically the collective guarantee that decision to buy the ute was a mistake. And it should be able to be brought into a court and have the appropriate weight applied to it. We can basically guarantee roughly what the farmers' worst fears were towards that decision. And the distance between what he thought was going to happen and what actually happened, the way that the government gets away with that is they call that progress. But what are we progressing towards? If you think like progress is a word, it's a really important word. It means that you have to be going somewhere to be having progress. And that means say it's like we're here. This is the moment in time when the farmer said no to the ute or said yes to the ute, whichever you want, right? So immediately, that's if I apply this argument as a logical kind of equation, we go, righto, well, the government is going to tell us, the society is going to tell us, the corporations are going to tell us that one decision to purchase a ute was progress. But to where? I have no doubt that the left, particularly the left government, and they even, they say this progressive ideology is guaranteed at progress. But progress is basically a scam if you're not going anywhere. When I was a child, I used to tell people that I knew exactly where I was going, and I didn't. Somehow I always got us home because I had pretty good navigational skills. But so people would trust me that I said we're going somewhere, but I didn't know where I was going. And really, when you think about it, the progress that we got was the progress to see some things, get shot at, jump some fences, scrape your knee, and then get home. The minute you're back home, there's no progress. You've just been on a perilous journey. You know, what progress is it's like a straw man. It's a carrot on a stick. Because there's no denying it. Almost, if you could go back, and we kind of can almost do this because we have like tools now. So if we go back and say 50, 60 years, right, we've progressed. Have we? Or have we been forced to go on a perilous journey? You know, a long enough journey like this, even if it circles back on itself, can be disguised constantly as progress, right until the moment when you end back at home, like I would do. I would always get everyone home. So it's like, this is where we are. We've circled back. That's how that would look in 3 dimensions. Right? If I can sufficiently bring this argument about the ute back, it's like, well, it looks like we've circled back to the firm precedent of people in Australia not wanting to purchase a ute because they didn't want to be at the behest of a closed either manufacturing industry or a closed petroleum industry. Right? And the majority of what these economic factors and things that are spoken about in politics right now, they're not anything to do with Australia, because Australia is basically wholesale plugged in to foreign like cities as a paddock, basically, if you were to look at the farm model. And we are being actively harvested like primitive fucking like slave farmers harvesting bananas by these cities and by these technologies, by these tools. Now, the weirdest thing is that they're building the tools that are enabling us to expose all of this. And that's because it is not a conspiracy, right? It's design. It's like we will design. We aligned to the way that the computers could compute. Right? So all of this had to happen, I guess, exactly like this. But the next step forward, right? The same way as the guy that said either no or yes to the ute, I mean, never in his wildest dreams could he have imagined what a day-to-day commute looks like for most urbanites, most suburbanites. No way. Because this didn't happen. You know, you pull onto one of these freeways and like, when did that ever happen unless you're in a war? I thought about it the other day. I was like, when would you ever be in that much like fast-paced, like like that's a war. That's a cavalry charge every fucking morning. You know, we can only adapt to so many things at a time. But somehow, like in the old model, like people worked, and then occasionally there was a cavalry charge. They didn't go to a cavalry charge every morning. There's no way that would have been accepted. Yet this is what we live in. And this is really kind of exactly what this farmer would have been saying. But he is completely voiceless. Because it's just novelty. It's all just novelty. When you boil down every single decision that everyone has made, that our governments have made, that world, global markets, economies, everything is made. They've all made the decision based on leisure and novelty. That's it. You know, it's like practically a handsaw cutting a tree down does the same job. So that actually it'd be leisure, novelty, and speed. But we're already 40, 50 years into the concept that we can build machines that go faster than is practical. This is what a speed limit is on the roads. We already live in this world. My argument is that collective technological leap collectively moves too fast. And the only thing it does is it filters people into these situations that are completely the most unsustainable, fucking ridiculous things I've ever seen. They have no relevant skills to provide it. This is a famine in waiting. You know what I mean? It's weird because it's like here it's not a famine in waiting because we can defend our resource base and we can still farm. We could, because we export so much, so we could do that. But it's like it's so susceptible to everything because it is basically simplified down to an economic circuit board. Right? But it's not high fidelity. It's like if we apply the same, like if you imagine New York City, right? How many wires and shit are going through, multi-story skyscrapers and then going into they're amazing. If you apply that same level, even 10% of that level of systematization and organization to, as I said, to like every acre of land, nobody ever has a fucking worry again. And it's to do with it's like what we chose to do first. We built a system that basically we built a cyber feudalism that is now exposed. And we are sold constantly into a cyber feudalism. And so we have basically a unacceptable cyber peasant class that will actively defend to protect their peasant class. And then we have a landscape that is absolutely underutilized. And it's like anytime I think about making economic decisions, like I've basically, within this system, if it doesn't change, I'll just jump on the fucking treadmill. I'll just become a global fucking, laptop nomad extracting, whatever percentage I can from whatever particular country or whatever. Like I could do that. That's way easier to do that than anything I've done here. But I just don't think that is where we're going. The problem is the transition because the value is false. But that isn't a problem as long as everyone is in the same market, right? So we need to adjust basically like it's like a futures market to do with property. It's like we have opportunities to develop these properties. So like we could, like if you think of building a house, it's like we can build a farm the same way as a house is built. So because basically then you go and buy a farm and you live on it and it will be smaller and more organized than anything you can imagine. And it has a system flow that you do. You go in, you do sheep here, into markets. But it needs to be like, it needs to be sold the same way. So it's so funny. It's like my intention over the next couple of years is to develop to a sales pitch to the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren or the children of this farmer that said yes to the ute. I'm going to sell them a farm that is industrially produced the same as the farm, that's the same as the ute was. You know what I mean? So it's like, then that looks more like this. You can't take one thing away. So we can't know that we'd be here if we didn't take this journey, this perilous journey. Right? But we're still back at the same equation. It's like I think that it should be offered and like primarily and introductorily to Australian people, to Australian citizens, to purchase a farm that works. Out of the box straight away. It does this. You put animals in here. then, you know, all of your commitment to husbandry or particular, you know, specializations or things, that is your job then as a farmer, right? But then you're at least buying the whole thing in a convenient industrialized process. And then I make a factory that makes farms instead of a factory that makes instead of a factory farm, I make a factory that makes farms. You know, that makes farms that the original ute purchasing farmer would have dreamt of. Like, these are the types of like divergences that we are going to be faced with all the time. I have no doubt it's like the suburban like they can be developed, but it's very difficult. It's going to take a lot of work. Like, each house has its own potential to be like hyper developed using these tools, and each suburb, I suppose, does. But we need to basically empower these local governments, and that's it's not where I want to be. I don't want to be there. I want to rescue the farmers and provide them with the industrialized solution that basically repairs the damage that was done by the ute. Doesn't need a tractor. You know, you have a small little sedan that you drive to church, like an efficient little car, the same as everyone else, because it's designed like a circuit board. You know, not a circuit board, not a dead fucking factory, but a living circuit board of life that produces like at a really consistent high level. It incorporates and there's like different versions of it. It's like, do you want to grow? What do you want to grow? Do you want to grow flowers? Do you want to grow potatoes? Do you want to grow fucking eggplants? I don't know, whatever it is. Right. And then you are then selling into a like corrected, more localized distribution system that basically cuts all these lines to do with these extraction centers. And then the city basically lines up. The problem kind of is that like, the city is going to need to adapt, right? So the city basically spent the last 200 years developing cities and urban life, you know, and designing all that. So they have all those skills. It's like, now you just need to design farms and sell like those products. You know, rather than extracting from an oversimplified, you responsibly apply a small extraction from a highly specialized, high fidelity, highly designed overall environment. You know, you specialize, you build career pathways that assist local governments to extend their capacity rather than just extracting from it. You know, it takes one person to phone, you know, I could phone 10 local governments in Australia and sell them pesticide, you know, to make my commission of whatever. It's like that is a really shit model. You know, it's really inefficient. So it's like we've exposed that with these tools and with the methodology and with the status quo as it is, we're either going to have a renaissance of oversimplified death machines like that within a year, you know, where those like by basically like maintaining the kind of salary or the low fidelity commission model. But we need to work out a way to incentivize high fidelity, high level design and development and finance and assistance and things like that. That's more difficult, but they have the tools. So it's literally what I'm doing. I know what needs to be done. And now I'm in the reverse. I'm concerned about the city, right? But I'm like, well, the city needs to work for everyone else now because you're exposed. You're exposed doing what you're doing. You know, and it's like, this will develop properly if the right decisions are made. And the decisions are crucial, and the decisions should always be for complexity. Like, we have this word diversity, and it seems to only be recognized when politicians are talking about people. People, if they're all people, it's all just people. That's one thing. You know, if they're all in a city and they all work in an administrative job doing something, that's all the same. That's not diversity. You know, diversity is every employment, every skill, every profession down the board from now to 400 years ago needs to be supported. And there is opportunity for all of them, but they need to, you need to de-simplify your extraction net that you've basically illegally built all around us, because we're just going to basically, any person that has 100 IQ is going to, the first thing they're going to use the tool for is to go, I'm in a net, I'm in a cage. You know, we already do that anyway. And now we have really technical ways to prove it. And you might think it's like, oh, he's using AI to fucking thing. I didn't use AI for any of this shit. This isn't AI. You know, where AI would be useful is like I can then print 10 pages and really give high level document. I can fill in the stuff. But that's kind of funny. It's like that's bureaucracy and red tape. In my opinion, I've explained myself well enough to basically push the entire government off a cliff right now. You know, but it's on the confidence of the AI that I know I can basically flesh this out to prove without a shadow of a doubt that this is gross negligence by collective governments, you know, that basically outsourced governance to extractive foreign cities, which is basically their entire job to not do that. You know, it used to be that the city had to come to you. You know, we have Romans invade. It's like, well, we've got New Yorkers invading. They've been invading for a long time. They've invaded every aspect of our lives. They've convinced our daughters to distribute their most precious asset, you know, for nothing. There's no doubt. Then that's what they've always done. So it's weird. It's like the fact that they developed these capacity to extract from us and to invade us, and then they used it for the simplest things. That's what exposed them. If they had have done this sophisticated from the get-go, we'd have no chance. But they didn't. They went for the simplest thing. And this needs to be considered as an international crime. If you have access to the most high-level tools and you use them for the most disgusting behavior that we've already identified clearly, you know, that in fact, in most cases, these actual government representatives spend a lot of their time representing this exact phenomenon in another way, and they are leading the charge of obscuring the landscape and denying our defences to allow this invasion in, which again is what would be expected. It's just outright deceit and corruption at the highest level. So the highest level corruption using the highest level tools. It's kind of like if someone had a Lamborghini and they're late for work every day. There's no excuses. This is where we're at with everything. The imperative and the responsibility is to act in the highest way possible with the highest tools, not to get the job done quicker and rough and ready and automate it. But this is the problem. It's like we're still working and walking and living in lockstep with what the advertisers have sold us. They've sold us leisure and free time, so we believe now that that is the highest thing. It's collateral damage through the advertising model. It's like they sell us the car, but it's how they sell us the car has built who we are everywhere. So leisure, like free time, becomes this obsession. Holidays, all these things, like, and then that's the government leans into that as well. They're like the unions. They're like, you need this, you need 8-day work weeks and things. It's like, why do I need an 8-hour work day if I get in 15 hours done and I only work 2 days? Because they needed their staff to be there every day to keep the system flowing and unchanged. You know? And how do I know that? Well, because it comes back to this. They had a better tool to shear sheep and they decided to ban it. Why? Because they needed everyone to be doing the same thing. That's what they do. They don't work for the improvement of workers. They work to keep the workers in a docile, domesticated state so that they can be led into whichever paddock they need them to be led into by the corporate entities that extract from us at a higher level. But we're a country. We're Australia. We should have our own thing of this. As we watch the metropolitan regions crash, their property prices crash, and we realise that these cities are not working in the interest of Australia. They're operators. Here, they're like reps working on behalf of other foreign cities that are, teetering on the edge of a cliff as well. None of this can exist. It's all just complexity. And it's what do I use? It's like this would be the size of a room, okay? And it's like even worse. It's like even compared to a hi-fi, like an old radio transmitter or whatever. It's like that was really simplistic. It's like our farms are nowhere near that level. So it's like it's really clear that urban, city, and our direct technology that we use made micro decisions, and then they forced, homogenization, destructive, ultimate scale, monocultural productivity. And it's like that. It's undeniably terrible. It's undeniably terrible. And if we treat our land base like that, it's basically the Matrix, and it's not hard to imagine that they think of humans in distant lands in the same way. And I guess you should all be grateful that you have someone that can think and see these things that is working in your favor. Because, as I said, it would be really easy for me to just join the fucking club. Obviously, if I'm doing it, I can just join the club. To reverse engineer these extraction systems, it's actually easier just to build one. But I just can't, I can't help but see that there is a cliff at the end. There's a waterfall. There's no way to go there. And most of the people that have set this up, they're old. They don't care. They just want to see it out. They're like, as long as I don't go off a cliff before I die, I'm fine. My kids can fucking inherit and deal with it. That's human nature. And, so I'm preemptive. This is a preemptive strike onto all the inheritors of this evil fucking infrastructure of simplicity. And this is what you're going to deal with. I'm going to drag every one of you into court as soon as your father or your grandfather dies. You're going to be dragged into court and forced to explain why you have led to the simplification of the world and built selective, extraction systems, electrical infrastructure of confinement, like an electric fence around a fucking gulag, like an electric fence around a fucking concentration camp. Why have you built this? It's the same question over and over and over and over again. And then we're right back to World War II with the excess supply of motors after the war. I'm not saying it was designed from then. You went from liberating people in concentration camps using electric fences, and then you went to celebrating your victory perpetually by driving cars around. But you're still in the same war. It's still there. It's all still there. It's just slightly changed. You know what I mean? And that's my job, is to make sure that everyone fucking knows that this is exactly the same as the fucking thing around Auschwitz or Dachau. And the fucking car that you drive down to the supermarket is exactly the same as the fucking Dickies Jeep or whatever fucking it was, or the tank that your grandfather rode in and fucking decimated fucking villages with. It's all the same. Right? But there's a control, an observer class that's watching this global war. And that's why it's important to have active, really hot, despicable wars actually going on. It's to distract us. It's like there's a war going on in Ukraine. There's a war going on in Gaza. It's like, how? Let me ask this. How is anything going on in Gaza or Ukraine or Iran, to put it that? How is any of that going to go on when we change the entire order of humanity this much? And it's like when we basically go from using a pocket watch, no, sorry, not a pocket watch, a digital fucking wristwatch from the early 90s to this. There isn't a hope in hell. You don't end war by doing anything on the battlefield in this environment. You end war by identifying the entire problem and increasing the fidelity of our decisions on the ground. You know what I mean? And that's literally what it is. It's like our technology is here, but it's being utilized in the wrong way. It's like our landscapes and environments are the pocket digital watch from 1991 or 1981. You shift to this, and it's the same thing that happens. And look what happened with shipping when we made a chronometer. It's all the same. Why? Because we could navigate. It's all exactly the same. Each land base is now navigable waters. We don't need to send signals home in order to legitimize any type of development. It's like that happens seamlessly. And that gets me back to the Romans. This is what I'm going to end on, is that there is a phenomenon to do with something that I think is very odd. Like basically every child has known that, we need water to live. There's a water shortage. Yet but we have salt water. We have these oceans. But this is God's trick on us all, that we can't drink the ocean water because it's salty, right? We can't drink the ocean water because it's salty. And then at the same time, we have the most prominent land-based expansionary empire was the Roman Empire, by land. Sometimes by boat, but majoritively by land. And they would pay their people in salt, and they would clear the land, which makes it resemble an ocean, right? There's other factors as well. There's like the Egyptians. They have these stories of being constantly being brought down by the people of the ocean. The ocean is a flat landscape. It doesn't have trees in it. Basically, what I assume is that we used to live as ocean-going empires, and somehow we stopped. And more than likely, because if you could drink the ocean and it was filled with fish, you've got to remember, it's like if you live on the ocean, you're constantly giving back to the ocean. So we could have the populations we could maintain as ocean living creatures would be ridiculous. So my assumption is that we somehow forgot how to live on the ocean, or we were hunted and killed by the Romans, who developed this capacity to clear the land and to provide for themselves agriculturally. And this kind of explains, it's like if all of our infrastructure was on the ocean, if it was all boats, and more individualistic, like whales and things like that, so we lived in communities of ocean-going people, then there wouldn't be any evidence of our civilization. It's my assumption, like we have a capacity that far outstrips what we live in. And these are the types of decisions that I think about. It's like with this tool and things like Starlink and stuff, it's like, why would I live on land? We do have tools now that desalinate water. If we had a significant civilization that was water-based, that was ocean-going, which we did, that's how we got here as British people, and just before that, we were fighting a global war on the oceans with the French, who were also an ocean-going people. And we stopped. How much nutrient, how much flow, what potentially what else were we doing that we didn't know we were doing when we were more in the ocean? Was there a time when, was the ocean not as salty? Is this the salty age? Is this the age of salt water? There's a lot of fresh water held in ice. This is like the water world thing. It's like, where did the salt come from? And most importantly, it's like, can we actually adapt to be able to deal with the salt water? Well, I think so, actually, and I think there's actually been studies done on this. So if we understand whose civilization are we living under, if we're still looking at the wheat belt here as a completely unacceptably cleared environment that relies on tractors and infrastructure and commodity-based storage of grain and stuff like that, that's the story of civilization. Even that Jesus was a fisherman catching fish. I think there's something that's missing from the overall story. That's a little bit metaphysical, and it's whatever, but it's like, I can't see that this system isn't just, and I'm not saying it is Rome, I'm saying it's imitating Rome, because people that are building systems that want to succeed will of course model a successful system. Greece was modeled after, Rome was modeled after Greece. Greece was modeled after Egypt. Egypt was modeled after Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamia apparently acquired all of their knowledge by people that walked out of the ocean. That's pretty open and shut. It's like we have interacted with an ocean-going civilization that we don't understand, who's basically warning us that this system is unacceptably shit. If we accept that maybe we were provided with these tools that happen to be waterproof and connect via fucking magical fucking airwaves or something like that, it's like, are we being stepped through an initiation, that I think appropriately has some levels of humiliation, because it's like, you fucking stupid monkeys are so fucking retarded. And I just think we've got to get used to that. I think that's obviously what we have to get used to. Almost like we have to cheer our politicians as they get dunked at the school fair in the dunking machine, just covered in embarrassing fucking exposure by these computer systems. Hey, he's like, I can see you later. Oh, I gave it a good old go. And I think that's really what we've got to get used to. I think there should be I couldn't actually think of a better metaphor than dunking our politicians as they're humiliated and left completely unacceptable for the job that they've claimed that they're doing. That's it. There's no hard feelings. I want to see them dunked in a pool of water, humiliated, and then left, and then someone else can give it a go. And they will almost definitely be immediately humiliated, as the technology just basically exposes all of these oversimplified fucking tricks, these game theory incarceration systems of fucking doom that need to be that, so we can circle back on ourselves and understand that we have all just been on a perilous journey back home. And quite literally, we're being led on a perilous simulated fucking tour of our own stupidity, more than likely by a far higher level of culture, of far more evolved society. And it's like, we are at the stage we can't even really conceptualize what that means. Right, but we've just got to get used to it. It's like, there's going to be exposure of absolute stupidity, and that's